Hi guys, welcome to the latest video. So first of all, thank you for the support recently. Videos seem to be doing pretty well. People seem to be enjoying them with great feedback, and the channel's growing, which is really cool. So thank you for that. If you are new to the channel, if you haven't subscribed yet, then please do. We're almost at 500 subscribers, which is really cool. So today's video is on my sort of top tips to grow your back. So ways that I would say are the most important things, the most important variables that people either miss out on or need to focus on in order to grow their back. Now, don't get me wrong, I haven't got an amazing back at all, but I know how to grow muscle. I just need a bit more time. So I guess my points are relatively valid if you value my opinion. So today's session is a pull session. With it being bank holiday, it is at Premier Gym rather than Progress Works Gym because it closed early. So it's at Premier Gym, which is the orange gym that I've done push sessions in before, and I'm training with my online client Slater, who I have trained with before on the channel as well. So what I'll do is I'll run you through the whole session with a walkthrough, and I will go over my top tips to grow your back. So sit back and enjoy the video. Right then guys, so I'm going to leave mine and Slater's session on in the background, and we're post session now while I run through my 5 main tips to build a back. Okay, so first of all, we're going to get the absolute givens out of the way. So the absolute givens are execution being bang on, which I'm going to delve into in terms of a couple of the tips, some things that you may not think about to improve execution. Another given is progressive overload, so making sure that over time you're progressively trying to get stronger in multiple rep ranges. So let's say you have 3 sets and you're doing a set of 4 to 8, a set of 10 to 12, and a set of 12 to 15, trying to get stronger in those rep ranges every single time, whether it mean getting more reps in that rep range or adding more weight to the bar and then being at the start of the rep range and getting stronger again. So that's what I mean by progressive overload. Over time, progressively trying to get stronger, increase your training volume in some way, or increase, at least keep your intensity high and then increase the volume by adding reps or adding load. Also a surplus, being in a caloric surplus, so consuming more calories than you are expending. Again, these are all the givens, I'm not into the actual tips. And then also just plenty of rest, sleep, hydration, all of those things, the basics that you need to nail in order to progress and actually grow. So the absolute givens: execution, progressive overload, caloric surplus or at least maintenance, and rest. Okay, so now we're going to go into the actual 5 tips, things that people probably won't know or a lot of people won't think about when it comes to training your back, and tips to grow it without sort of having to you know, these tips are things that people won't really consider a lot of the time. It's not just, oh, just get stronger, the basics. So the first one is use wraps. Okay, so if you're watching the training session in the background, you'll see that on the majority of movements, any movement that's going to require grip strength, I'm using wraps. Okay, so the last thing that I want to do when I'm training my back is for my grip strength or my forearm strength to die out before my back, whatever it be, my traps, my lats, whatever I'm trying to hit. Okay, so let's take the first exercise, for example, the single arm pull down. Okay, so on that, if I wasn't to use wraps, 100% my forearms would die out before my lats, 100%. What I'm doing with the wraps is I'm locking in and making sure that my grip is reliant on the wrap and not on my own grip strength. Okay, so what I would also recommend when it comes to the wraps is hooking your hand. So hook your hand rather than grasping it like that. Hook your hand, rely on the wrap. When you're doing the wraps, you want them to be, so the wrap, you want it to go through your thumb and your first finger. Okay, so get them set up like that, bang. So you've got the wraps and it goes through there and there, okay? I'll actually show you how to do it. So with the wraps, that's gonna be my left hand because it's gonna go through like that, bang. That's gonna be my right hand, bang, okay? When it comes to barbell, obviously I'm gonna go, let's say on the RDL, the second exercise, I'm gonna go overhand grip. So the rope from the wrap is gonna go underhand and it's gonna wrap around like that. I'd also recommend that you always wrap thumb side, so never wrap around and go this way, wrap around and go this side, okay? And wrap it and rev it on like you're on a motorbike, get it as tight as you possibly can on all the movements that are gonna require grip strength, because we're not trying to train our forearms, we're trying to train our back, okay? If you wanna get bigger forearms, then train them directly. Don't worry about trying to train them when you're training your back, because you're trying to train your back. It's like trying to train your tibialis when you're training legs. Okay, you know, you're doing a leg press. Oh, I want to train my tibialis. Like, no, you're training your quads. Focus on your quads. You can train your tibialis when you need to train your tibialis. Okay, so that's wraps. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to completely forget your hands and focus on your elbows. So on all of your pulling movements, if it's a row, if it's a pull down, completely forget your hands. You're not pulling through your hands or your arms, you're pulling through your back, your lats, your traps, whatever it may be, your rhomboids if it's an upper back row. Okay, so you need to focus on dragging through the elbow, whether it be a high row, whether it be a low row. Forget your hands, again, hook them, don't grasp them, use them as hooks, and just drag. Think about dragging. Do not think about pulling through the hands. Think about pulling through your hands. All you're going to do is you're not going to pull through your back, you're going to fatigue your biceps, and you're going to train your biceps. Okay, a lot of people who have a poor back have good biceps because they're used to pulling through their biceps rather than pulling through their back. So you'll see someone and they think, oh, they've got good arms. Generally their back's not great because they're pulling all their back movements, whether it's a pull down, whether it's a row, it's all through their arms. Their back never gets short. Okay, so think about getting your back short. And how you're going to do that is through completely forgetting your hands and thinking about dragging through the elbows. Okay, so the third tip is scapular control, which relates quite a lot to focusing on sort of forgetting your hands. So scapular control, and what I mean by that is you being in control of how you move your scapula in the movement. So if you're doing a row, let's say we're trying to do an upper back row. Okay, so if we're trying to hit our upper back, we're trying to hit our rhomboids, trying to hit our traps, we're trying to hit our sort of mid upper lat erectors. Okay, so a lot of the musculature there is attached to the scapula, especially the rhomboids and the traps. So we need to think about retracting our scapula and then dragging our elbows back. Okay, if you just keep your shoulders in the same position and just pull through your arms, again, you're just going to be fatiguing your biceps. So you need to retract and drive. Think about retracting your scapula when it's on a pull down. So you'll notice on the single arm pull down and on the mag grip pull down, I'm trying to keep my scapula pretty much fixed, and that's because I'm trying to target my lats solely. I'm trying to isolate my lats, and the lats don't insert on the scapula. Okay, they originate along the spine and they insert at the humerus, so the upper arm. Okay, they don't actually insert on the scapula. So for us to be moving our scapula, it's pretty pointless, okay, because the lats don't insert there. So when you're trying to isolate your lat, you need to control your scapula, but you don't need to move it. We need to lock it in. So we need to keep it pinned in position, like on the pull down, and just drag. We need to keep it pinned in position and just drag. If we're doing like a lat dominant row, we need to try and just keep our scapula in position and drag. You know, we need to, a single arm, keep our scapula in position and drag. If we're trying to hit more mid back, upper back, retract the scapula. If we're trying to hit the traps, obviously you need to elevate and retract the scapula and think about depressing them to get the stretch. So think about scapular control. We're not just pulling through the arms on a lot of movements. Even when we are not moving the scapula, we're still not pulling through the bicep. We're really just dragging the elbow down and in. Like I say, forget the hand, drag it down in, think about pulling through your lat. Okay, so that's the third tip, is learn scapular control. The fourth tip is to just get strong at hinging. So whatever the hinge may be, whether it's a deadlift, whether it's a stiff leg deadlift, whether it's a RDL, whether it's a rack pull, which, you know, with it below the knee with actual good form on a rack pull, whatever the hinge may be, it may even be a Dorian deadlift, a pause deadlift, whatever the hinge, get strong at it. Do not leave it and neglect your hinges. I wish I didn't when I first started training. I'd be a lot further on than I am now. I'm doing 160 for a shit RDL where I can't keep my upper back tight because I've got no fat there. But get strong at hinging, okay? Find a hinge that works for you. Find a hinge that you can progress safely and you can progress well over time, that you can stay tight on, stay safe on, and progress gradually, okay? Do not search for a feel. Don't worry if you're not feeling your back in terms of your lats contract, or you're not feeling your hamstrings and your glutes contract. Do not worry about that. Focus on staying tight, getting your body in a position, and just performing the exercise. If you overthink trying to feel a hamstring stretch or contraction on an RDL, you're likely going to be doing 40, 60, 80 kilos at max. When you're doing a load that is challenging enough to actually grow your back, you won't feel anything. And don't worry about that, because there's other places to feel things. Yeah, we've got the single arm pull down to get the lat short and feel things. Yeah, we've got the row to feel the lats contract. We've got the upper back row to feel the upper back contract. We've got the pull down to feel the lats more. Okay, we've got the pull over to feel the lats more. We've got the rear delts on the rear delt reverse pec deck movement to feel the rear delts. The hinge is to just get strong, get your body in a position, get it in a levered position where you're tight, and just get strong. Your back is having to do so much just to hold that weight in that hinge position, okay? Even just to hold the weight and stay tight in the stood up straight position. Your traps, your erectors, even your lats are having to lock in and do so much. Your lats are almost in an isometric contraction because the arms are adducted and pinned into your sides. You're having to do so much. If you can get strong at a hinge, you will grow a back. Okay, so get strong at hinging with good form. Yeah, stay tight, one that you can progress over time. Whatever the hinge, get strong at it, do not neglect it, okay? That's tip number 4. The final tip, the 5th and final tip, is your exercise selection and exercise sequence. Okay, so let's run through this session. So we had a single arm pull down. So the reason that we've got that first is to get the lat short, okay? When the lat is fresh, we want to get it short. The ability to get the lat or any muscle fully short diminishes through the session as you accumulate more fatigue. So we might as well make the most of it with an isolation first. Similar to why we do an isolation on push first and isolations on legs first, is to really make the most of it. Make the most of that muscle while it's fresh, get it nice and short while it's fresh, make the most of it, okay? So it's always good to start off with an isolation. Then obviously we've got the hinge. Again, we're not fatigued too much here. We've got the shoulder joint warm, we've got the upper back, we've got the lats, we've got everything warm through the first exercise. Then we're going into the big hinge, okay? And we've got a lot of energy still because it's early in the session to get strong at it. So it's good to have a hinge variation second. Then, to be fair, it's not the most important in terms of whether you do a row or a pull down next, but what I would say is do a chest supported row. You've just done a heavy RDL or a heavy deadlift, your erectors are going to be pretty fatigued. We don't want to then have to hold ourselves up in a straight position, so a chest supported row next would be good, or a pull down where you're not, obviously your lower back isn't really fatiguing because it's not against, it's not having to hold yourself up. So a pull down or a chest supported row next, then the other, and then I would go into more of an upper back dominant movement. So we've done the lats, we've fatigued the lats, then we've gone into a hinge, which is hamstrings, glutes, erectors, traps, rhomboids, everything, lats as well. Then we're going into, again, more isolated on the lats, again with the pull down, a little bit more isolated on the lats, getting plenty of volume because the lats are a big muscle group that can handle a lot of volume. Then going into the upper back movement, so a little bit more musculature involved, smaller muscles involved. A little bit later in the session, we're a little bit more fatigued. We're not going to be moving as much load at this point with an upper back row, therefore having it later on makes sense. Then we're going into more of the isolated, sort of less fatiguing work, like a pullover, like a rear delt movement, whether it be a rear delt dumbbell fly or a reverse pec deck, which feels good. And then I'd go into some bicep work as well. You could obviously add a shrug in there. I don't have a shrug because I have my RDL on this day and it's quite fatiguing on the traps, but could easily have a shrug in there. So that exercise selection is quite important. They want to complement each other. So we're not doing lats, 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 erectors, traps, rhomboids, rear delts. We're gradually sort of working through the session and thinking, okay, the lats are quite a big muscle group, we need a lot more volume on the lats, so we're going to separate it a little bit. We're going to do lats first, get them short, make the most of it, then we're going to have a hinge, then we're going to go into lats again, then we're going to go more into upper back, then we're going to go into targeting, isolating the lats with a pullover, so it's a slightly different variation, then we're going to go into the rear delt. So they all complement each other. It's not doing lows next to each other, or it's not doing going straight in and doing reverse pec deck, biceps, then upper back row, and then the hinge, because your upper back's gonna be trashed from all those movements. Why would you do your biceps first? Yeah, if you want to do biceps first to do a massive lagging body part, do them at the start of push or do them at the start of legs, where they're not going to be a secondary mover. They're a secondary mover in all of your movements in the session. The biceps, as much as we try and take them out of it, they're still going to be a secondary mover. So we don't want to have them in at the start of pull because they're going to fatigue all our movements when we're trying to target our back. So exercise sequence, exercise selection, think about it. So there are your 5 main tips. Obviously I went through the givens in terms of execution, progressive overload, being in a surplus, and rest and recovery. But the main 5 tips in terms of other things, the ones that you might not think about: use your wraps, forget your hands, focus on your elbows, control your scapula, get strong at your hinging, and focus on your exercise selection and exercise sequence. Okay guys, so I hope that helps. Any questions, please ask. Any comments, drop them below. Please like the video, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you in the next one.